In today's business world, change is the only constant, and mastering transformation is the ultimate key to success. Welcome to Shift and Thrive. I'm your host, Natalie Nathanson. Each week, we'll bring you conversations with CEOs who delve into how they successfully drove critical change in their organization. This show is sponsored by Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service B2B marketing agency. Hi, and welcome to another special edition episode on Shift and Thrive as part of our Go-to-Market Spotlight series. If you're a CEO or business leader wondering how your go-to-market needs to evolve right now to meet today's market realities, this episode is for you. And I am very excited to introduce today's guest. He sits at the intersection of product, go-to-market, and AI, with over 2 decades of experience helping companies turn complex technology into real-world customer value. Just prior to his current role, he spent 12 years at Salesforce, where he held roles spanning solution engineering, sales, product strategy, competitive intelligence, and AI product, and was part of the founding team behind Agentforce, helping to take it from zero to revenue in under a year. With a background in both computer science and studio art, he brings the rare ability to bridge technical depth with market clarity, helping to make complex solutions easier for customers to understand, trust, and adopt. He is currently a Chief Product Officer at LexisNexis Legal and an advisor to private equity. Vivek Mahapatra, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Natalie. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Same here. And I know we were talking a bit just before we started recording that, just how much uncertainty and kind of change there are in our current times. So I know we'll have a lot to get into there. And would love to really start with a transformation story. So can you share with me a moment that you had to navigate a major shift and what you learned from that?
Yeah, transformation seems to be like the name of the game these days, or disruption and now transformation. I used to joke when I was meeting customers that, enterprise transformation is like the buzzword for any project that anyone kicks off. But with AI, I think everyone's gone through significant transformations. There's a massive transformation that I worked on at our organization, and we were launching a huge AI product, AI first product. And I think what was kind of interesting about that is a few things. One is nobody knew the answers. And it was very, very clear that we also didn't even know the questions to ask, if you will. The transformation that I was part of, it was, just post-COVID, I was on a team and we were trying to figure out how do we get AI first quickly, but with really specific use cases where customers can see the value. And so what was crazy about the transformation story, that big learning experience for me, is it needed to be very, very focused, and there needed to be very strict priorities. So if something was a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 priority and something else came up, you had to move 1, 2, and 3 around to figure hey, is this fourth thing number 1? Is it number 2? Is it number? It is not. It's not in the top 3 priorities. Now, for better or for worse, that became more and more. It became 5 priorities and 10 priorities, and then other teams got involved. But in the very beginning, what was interesting when we were launching this product is it was absolute cross-functional. There was product marketing, there was product management, there were different teams in the organization. The CIO's office was involved in a product conversation, which was pretty interesting. I was finance, legal, because, we didn't know how much to spend or what we were spending. And, now people talk about token maxing. Back then, there was a completely different way of how people were pricing. And so what was crazy about the transformation, I think for me personally, as I was going through this and learning, is you needed to be really, really comfortable telling people, hey, I don't know. Here's what I think. Here's what I'm going to do. I don't know the answers. And working in an environment that was fast paced, but where a lot of people don't know the answers, can basically go one of 2 ways. One is you're kicked out of the team because you don't know. The other is everyone else is oh, I feel more comfortable sharing that I don't know. And so when the humility kind of increases and everyone is working really hard all the time, I feel like there is a new energy that's created and people are more likely to collaborate because they don't feel like they're going to be removed from the conversation in this transformation. And I think a lot of times when you think about transformation, enterprise transformation, It's like, get on the bus or you're off the bus. Like there's no two options. And you don't even know where the bus is going. Most people are like, oh, we're going to do an enterprise data transformation, or we're going to do a, whatever, new product, et cetera. You kind of know where it's going. With this, it was just, you didn't know. And finding people that were comfortable not knowing, asking the right questions, being open to pivoting and actually looking at the same problem from different lens. So not getting too married. And there was this thing that my team and I came up with around, we called it AI product growth for a while, where you experiment like crazy. You validate a few of those ideas that you experimented on, and then you have to scale an even smaller subset of those ideas. So if you think about, like, it's like concentric circles, like experiment on 100 ideas, maybe validate like, or maybe not 100 ideas, let's say 10. Then you go validate like 4 or 5 maybe, and then you pick 1 or 2 to like try to scale. But the crazy learning with that one was when we were experimenting, because it was so cross-functional, when we got to the scale, so experiment, validate, scale. Once we got to the scale, the teams that we were working with in the experimentation phase are the ones that would need to ship that. So if you're working with the pricing and packaging team, or you're working with the sales team or the product team or the, marketing, et cetera, and you came up with a really cool idea that you're like, hey, I think we should try this. It wasn't on you to actually be the one that implemented it. It was, hey, it's cross-functional. Let's get this team involved. And I think that was like a really interesting learning for me through the transformation is if you invite people to join you on a journey where nobody knows the answers, but everyone's kind of aligned to try to figure it out, it's a lot easier. But I will say, in retrospect, it's a lot easier. There's nothing easy about it, but it was exciting and it was interesting. And I learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. But also, I feel like it's shown a light on prioritization and focus in a way that has changed how I think in product, as a leader, teams, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there to unpack. I like how you're talking about kind of the level of confidence and being okay saying I don't know, right? It's like naming the elephant in the room, oftentimes in these kind of situations, and as empowering to everyone else in the room, one, to be able to say I don't know either, but then to problem solve together, which I think is what you're talking about, and come up with those experiments. And I think in another conversation you'd mentioned psychological safety, right? So what that one line of like, I don't know, I don't have all the answers, what that would open up for an organization.
Yeah, I would say 2 things on that one. First off is like, I feel like most of us early in our careers are taught that the way to grow in your career and the whatever corporate ladder, et cetera, is to be the loudest voice in the room, to be the one that everyone goes to be the one that everyone knows, like, oh, this is the person that has the answer, or get this person involved. And there's a certain point at which that shifts. And it's not about being the loudest person in the room. It's actually about like creating a space, like creating a room for others to speak up and to create like a space for others to ask those questions and work together. And I think that's sort of like when you move from an individual contributor or an IC to sort of a leader, it's not always because you got a title and they're like, okay, here's a title, you're a leader now, here's a team. Sometimes you don't even have a team and you need to be a leader. How do you do that? And I think it's like creating that space, to your point, where people feel like we're in the space together and we're all going to ask tough questions and we're going to make it work. On your comment about psychological safety, it was interesting actually during this transformation. The other thing that was happening in the industry was basically a reorg, right? Like there was just so many layoffs and lots of like teams changing and teams restructuring. And so this analogy is one that I think I joked about with you before, and I'll share it really quickly. Is, imagine you're a teenager, or imagine there's teenagers and they threw a party, and then the parents came home early and the teenagers are cleaning up the house. They did a poor job of cleaning up the house. The parents are like, oh my God, clean up. This is horrible. Like this, you need to keep cleaning up. And as they're cleaning up after this party, the doorbell rings, and in the middle of the cleanup, the parents stop them and say, hey, you need to invite this guest in. And then suddenly, like, it turns into another party with the new guest, and the guest starts helping you clean up. And so the analogy here, right, is that the teenagers are all mostly tech firms, or most companies in general. The parents are all the investors and stakeholders, and COVID was the first party. COVID happened. After COVID got over, people were sort of, unfortunately, like a lot of restructuring and layoffs, et cetera, started happening because the markets were kind of crazy, right? Like we didn't know about travel and hospitality as a business. And then suddenly there were investments made in certain types of technology and QR codes and this and that, and like, social just distancing, et cetera. So there are lots of industries and businesses that were affected. But then as the cleanup started happening, like the first round, around 2022, the doorbell rings and AI shows up. And a lot of organizations that still hadn't finished their COVID sort of restructuring, if you will, or not even restructuring, it's also just like figuring out if the team that you've built is the right team for the future. Suddenly AI shows up and like a lot of that planning changed and everyone paused it and said, okay, stop this cleanup. There's a new party. And so now we're in the middle of that new party and there's clearly a lot of stuff happening and people are using AI as a reason or an excuse or a way to continue some of the restructuring and the layoffs, et cetera. So in the context of that, in tech especially, knowing that first off, you're in the middle of a transformation. A lot of people don't know the answers. In the past, when you said, I don't know, you were kicked off the bus. So now you're thinking, wait, if I say I don't know, I might lose my job. Like, what do I do? And so one of the things that I did with my team during this transformation, actually about a year and a half or two after, like as we were working through the transformation of this product in general, is I started having a conversation because I noticed that there was a lot of fear of the uncertainty and a lot of fear of job security. And so I asked the team, I said, hey, what happens, if you get laid off? We're like, I don't know anything. I'm not reading the tea leaves. I'm not telling you, just asking you, what are your obligations? What are your plans? Is your network solid? Like, are you in touch with different people? Have you worked, unfortunately or fortunately, on your resume or your LinkedIn? Like, are you staying relevant? Are you learning, not for the sake of trying to get a job, but are you just learning to stay relevant? And the first few weeks and months of that, my team was definitely quite anxious because they thought like he knows something and he's not we're getting prepared. And then after a while, they realized, oh, this guy is just, and I used to call it radical transparency. I'd be like, look, anything I know that I'm allowed to share, like legally, et cetera, obviously within the bounds of the role and HR, et cetera, I will share with you and I will try to give you all the details possible so that, because I'll treat you like an adult, but I will also have adult conversations about that and what it means. And so the first few rounds of this, the radical transparency, was very uncomfortable. But what's crazy is it created this psychological safety because all conversations were on the table. Like there was nothing taboo to talk. It was just amazing. And the comment or the analogy I make, it's like when you watch a horror movie, if all the lights are on, there's nothing scary because there's no unknowns. There's no, where everything is. And so for me, it was like, how do I help shine a light on the unknowns and the uncertainties that are actually the thing that people are scared of when they lose their job? And so having that conversation openly meant that this conversation wasn't something they were having outside of work or with coworkers or at the water cooler. They were talking to me. They're talking to each other. And what was crazy is that experimentation, validation, scale effort that we did, it made that 10 times better. And so the high performance culture, which most people use that term when they're talking about, rationalization of workforce, et cetera, our team was super high performance culture because radical transparency led to psychological safety, and that created high performance. The ideas they came up with, the work they were doing, it was just amazing. And I felt like that was one of the huge lessons I learned in the transformation is when you shine a light on the thing that everyone's afraid of and you try to have really adult conversations about what everyone's kind of is on everyone's mind, but they're not bringing to work, it can really help create a much better work environment. And I learned so much from that experience. There were projects that we got put on. There were activities and events that people were like, can we have your team join? We want to think differently. We want to try new things. You create that space for people and it's on you to make sure that they feel comfortable being who they are. And then boom, they're going to be great at their work.
And I'm finding good leaders are having these kinds of hearts to hearts with their team, whether it's kind of a first line manager, an executive talking to the organization overall. I'm seeing and just hearing from, folks in my network that I'm finding a lot of the bigger companies these days are creating case studies in what not to do that are creating a lot of that kind of fear and uncertainty and not having those honest, heart to hearts and avoiding the hard communications rather than like you did, right? Tackling it head on, saying, I don't have the answers. I don't know exactly what this means for you, for the product or et cetera. But I think it creates an environment that makes it very hard to find solutions and know which questions to ask and all of that.
I think one thing that helps, Natalie, on that, I at least for me personally has helped, and I'm doing something similar with my new team now, is try and define what's the vision and the strategy that you're working on. And one of the things that helped me is helping me, and hopefully will be successful, we'll see, is thinking about where do you want to be in 12 to 18 months? Like, what's the vision for your product? Not today, not tomorrow, in 12 to 18 months. And the reality is, no matter who you are, part of that answer is, I don't know. You just don't know. It's not possible that you will know what's going to happen in 12 to 18 months. It's just not possible. And it just forces to have that I don't know versus saying, hey, Natalie, what do you think is going to do? And you're like, oh, shoot, do I say I don't know? Am I going to sound stupid? What if somebody else thinks they have the answer? 12 to 18 months from now, what's the product going to be? I don't know. Do you know? None of us do. But if you think, okay, what's my vision for what I'm working on in 12 to 18 months? And I know I won't know a bunch of things. That's exciting. Okay, let's try it. And it's exciting in the right environment for the right type of person to think through. It can be very unnerving if you're not ready for that conversation. So setting up the space and saying, hey, I want you to think about this. I don't know the answer. You know the answer. Nobody knows the answer. It actually helps reduce a little bit of that uncertainty. I don't think anyone can reduce the 100% of the uncertainty because there's just so much unknown.
I think what that creates is a lot of this external pressure that, and I was just talking to a group of founders about this recently, like the pressure, like you feel like you need to go through a revolution in your business and everyone wants that magical new vision and everyone's marching towards it and you can clearly communicate it and all the execution is rallying around that. The reality I think a lot of companies are facing is this is more of an evolution, right? Because the technology is a moving target. So everything you're building, the landscape is shifting from under you. And I think in a lot of ways that reduces the pressure a bit, right? You don't need this kind of big unveiling of the new strategy. You need to stay true to the value you bring to your customers, knowing that how you deliver that will change. There will be things that you can do that weren't possible to do a few years ago that bring kind of new value and new innovations, but that happens a bit more organically by kind of doing the right things, creating the right internal environment and staying close to your customers and being open to new customer segments.
You nailed it. I think the joke, I'm trying to remember who this person said it to me. It's a joke somebody made. And he was like, look, we don't sell, customers buy. That's it. Like everyone thinks you sell and you're a good salesperson. Like, yeah, sure, that's all true. But if customers aren't buying, you're not selling anything. And customers only buy when there's a pain point that you help them with. I especially like kind of the world that I'm in right now because there's a very, very interesting set of problems that we're trying to solve for in the legal environment. And there's some amazing core technologies and you know things that we do. And there's obviously a lot of disruption in the space, but that's also exciting because there are a lot of different ways to capture value and create value. But because there's like a pretty good conversation and relationship with the customer, we're able to do that. And you're nailed it. Like, stay close to your customer. Now, I've definitely worked with folks and even some of the advisory work I've done, but like they will just come up with this crazy idea of something that they want to build for a customer. And it's like, okay, cool. 12 to 18 month vision, it's open. Tell me more about how you're going to get there and why would a customer try? And maybe the answer is, yeah, go ahead and do that. It's cool to have those open conversations and feel like it's constant, the evolution. I just think that rate at which change is happening, right? Like people have 1 year or 3 year roadmaps. I don't know anyone in any organization, technology or otherwise, that has a 3 year roadmap or even a 1 year roadmap. You may have like some idea, but like an actual roadmap is just disrupting constantly. So yeah, it's an interesting time.
Hey, this is Natalie, your Shift and Thrive host. After chatting with lots of CEOs, one thing is crystal clear. Leveling up your company means having a killer go-to-market strategy. That's what my crew at Magnitude Consulting does every day. If you're trying to step up your marketing game, whether it's strategizing, accelerating your pipeline, expanding into new markets, or getting into AI and automation, let's talk. No pitch, no pressure, just good conversation. Visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com/Natalie to schedule a time. Can't wait to connect. I want to talk a little bit about the balance of listening to your customers to develop what they say they want versus leading customers because you might be looking at things a bit differently or understand what's possible with the technology that your customers might not be thinking about. So given all of your product experience, how do you think about that in our current environment?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you build trust with your customers, they're more willing to talk to you about their full day. The reason I'm saying that is some products and services are built for like just a point in time, for a thing that you do. Depending on how much your customers love you or how much they love your product or how close you are to your customers, you can understand more about the rest of their day and more about like, oh, there are other areas where they would love to have an interface back to this product. And I think with the product and the technology these days, especially with AI and voice, et cetera, there's so many cool ways to integrate your work in a more seamless way so that AI can help or agents can help you even while you're not focused on a specific problem. And I think the dialogue with customers, and there's some things that we're working on, so I want to be mindful about what I share, but like the dialogue, the open dialogue with the customers and the learning and sort of being transparent about the fact that, hey, there are things we don't know. There's things we do for your business that are amazing. And there are things that we think we could do for your business, or there are things that we really believe we could do better, or, you know, maybe better than a competitor or better than any other product you have, or there isn't a product for this. And let's have that conversation. Let's sort of like open a two-way dialogue. In a B2C environment, it's a lot harder to get very specific. You get a lot of patterns, bell curves, et cetera, statistics, and you kind of know where your customers are, et cetera. PLG companies, there's a lot, completely different conversation. But in B2B, you can actually have a really good bridge between you and the customer. And if you understand more about their day, you can create better, more sticky and meaningful and valuable products for them that they're happier to use. Because ultimately, you want to solve a problem for them in their day that either makes them more productive, make them more money, saves them some money, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I think about it. And that's how my team thinks about it. And that's honestly, like, we spend a lot of time listening to customers. And if there's something that we're working on that is not obvious, like, oh, why would you do this? It's a great opportunity to like figure out how to communicate that to the customer. And then most time people are like, oh my God, how do we not think about this? It's so obvious that you would be used for this.
You're making me think of a friend of mine, old MBA classmate that's been chief product officer at a number of robotics companies. And he does the kind of the day in the customer mapping. And it's been the unlock for him at, I think, at least 3 or 4 companies where he's been. And it sounds, a bit obvious once you go through that, but it's not at the time, right? And
yeah,
I think it can a bit similar to the conversation we were having around the employees and the psychological safety, and it's okay saying I don't know. It's at the end of the day, whether it's employees or in a B2B customer relationships, they are relationships and it's a partnership, and you get more out of it, the more you share and are open to asking the right questions and evolving accordingly.
I have a lot of whiteboards in my office, and I'll literally draw like timeline and arrows and like, okay, so they did this and then what happened? Where do they go? What do they do? And so I think just like for me, visually mapping it out helps me a lot to look at opportunity spaces, opportunity gaps, et cetera, or like integration, partnerships, just the whole life cycle. If you just put the customer right at the center and you watch their day, I think about it like understand their day. That's it, right? The personas, so a lot of times the people that you sell to are not always the highest users of your application either, the people that use your product the most. So like, the buyer is different than the user, et cetera. So you have to like understand that. So working closely with, UX and product and engineering and the customers, it's a very exciting time, I will say, to be in product. Yeah, it is absolutely the most exciting time for me in my career to be where I am right now.
Yeah, you just touched on something interesting, right? That the buyer is not necessarily the user. And I was going to ask you, right, how do you go through this process as a product leader, right? Is it purely through conversations? How do you figure out who are the right people in the organization to talk to? So kind of talk us through kind of the approach that you take to make sure you're kind of getting the right inputs and in the right way.
So I kind of alluded a little bit to like product and user experience and engineering and salespeople and customer service, and different companies call them different things, right? I just joined the organization, LexisNexis Legal. It's a very exciting time. Really, really cool team. I really love the culture here. I'm getting to know a lot of different people and getting to understand where each person plugs in to different parts of the customer journey. But everyone does plug into a part of the customer journey, which is great. And I think for me, generally speaking, in my experience in product, that's 20 plus years in tech and product, is there was a very different way to understand how a customer went through their day to day and the process of user experience and sort of with HCI, human centered design, human centered interaction, human computer interaction. Sorry. And so for me, what I try to do is understand whichever organization I'm in, whichever team I'm in, who are the different customer facing teams? What is the data that we have access to about customer interactions or telemetry or whatever that is? And then how do we really understand like the ecosystem of what the customer is trying to get done? If you think about the personas at different companies and organizations, a larger organization may have many, many different teams. A smaller organization may have one team that does all of it, right? I've worked with teams before where literally like the UX and the engineer were the same person, or the PM and the engineer is the same person, and the UX person and the customer success person was the same. So there was like 2 or 3 people playing 4 or 5 roles. But those roles exist to understand different parts, whether it's data, whether it's behaviors, whether it's sales patterns or the ecosystem. And so I, again, as a whiteboard, like I will literally like draw this out for myself. I'll draw a circle and be like, okay, this is you, this is your team, this is our customers, and this is the ecosystem. Like very simple 4 things. Like, okay, so what are you working on? What is your team working on, or what are the teams you're working on? And how does that affect the customer? And how does it part of the ecosystem? So I'm a big fan of just oversimplifying everything, because I feel like then it's easier to actually find and connect dots and, oh, the problem is here. Like, okay, let's go there. And if there are gaps, so I was working on something recently and we realized that the inputs we were getting for this one specific work stream, there were 3 teams working on it, and each of the teams was presenting to me separately. So I was like, hey, can we all be on the same meeting? And they were like, yeah, why not? And so we all got in the same meeting, and suddenly we all were learning from each other and the inputs helped each other. But because of how previously on a different product they had managed their time, they just didn't think to be on the same team, like on the same call, because it was like not relevant at the time. But I feel like now with AI and as fast as, with mobile technologies, internet, AI, there's a lot of overlap just in so many things. So some of what I try to do is force teams that may not be talking to each other to talk to each other. Not force, but create opportunities and environments where, back to the thing I said earlier about creating a room or a space, like I just like to try to bring different groups together, be like, hey, can we collaborate on this?
This is great, and I could keep going down this path of conversation for hours, but I know we're almost at the end of our time, and I'd love to ask you a question that I like to ask every guest, and that is, what is the best piece of advice you've been given that is still shaping you today?
Yeah, this is, I was thinking about this actually quite a bit. A friend, mentor of mine once said to me, I was in a really interesting time. I was in a team and it was not working out very well. I made a lot of mistakes. It was not no one's fault. I definitely made a lot of mistakes, and it was definitely a lot of it was my fault, but I was definitely struggling. And I remember just sort of trying to figure out what to do. Like, do I power through? Like, I've learned a lot and continue this, or do I try something new? Like, what was the answer? And one of the things he asked me, he said, for most of my decisions, I call them rocking chair decisions. Like, I ask myself when I'm going through something really like tough, what's my rocking chair decision? As in, when I'm 85 years old and I look back, what will I remember? What will I take away? What will I think about? And it's a very meta question, because that forced me then to be like, okay, how much of this is even going to matter when I'm 85 years old? Right? Am I going to look back and be like, oh, that one team I worked on, it was so bad? Or am I going to be thinking about other things, my kids or my wife or my family, my parents, my in-laws, like, whoever, right? And so it forced me to kind of create a lot of perspective on the problem statement and put myself at a distance. So I had to look at myself from like many, many years from now. And that is something that like versions of that have impacted how I make decisions. I've lived and grown up like born in India, grew up in Thailand. I've lived in New York, San Francisco, Chicago. You and I talked about this before, France, Singapore, etc. And so there's a lot of movement and a lot of new personalities and new ways of working and learning, and constantly, I'm always an outsider wherever I go, because I've never lived in Raleigh. I just moved here. I've literally never lived in North Carolina in my life. And I'm here now. My kids are going to go to school here. My wife and I was traveling a lot for work in the last few years, and now we're all here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Like, what? And so we're always sort of like new or learning. And in those moments, as things are tough or different, or you feel out of place, et cetera, this perspective of like, hey, 85 years from now, right? Like, so one of the things when I got this job was like, 85 years, probably look back and be like, that was awesome. I loved Raleigh because it was a good family friendly, blah, 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 versus some of the other things that I was looking at before this opportunity came up were much more like the startup land in New York or San Francisco, or like, let's go, go, go. And it was a rocking chair decision. I was like, when I'm 85, am I going to be excited that I did another crazy fast growth environment, or that I like worked in an environment like this where I am right now? It's like very family focused, amazing culture, definitely like busy and fast, but not like a, crazy startup AI frontier lab kind of thing. And so that was a rocking chair. So a lot of decisions I make are marked by that like rocking chair decision when I'm not sure what to do or I'm stuck. I just kind of like zoom out and look back and say, okay, what should I do? Thinking about the next X number of years and trying my best to see like what could happen.
Yeah. I love that advice. It resonates with me. I also try to do that kind of retro from my deathbed. Which decision will I regret making or not making? And I think that permeates both business and personal life.
Funny you said the deathbed thing, because I remember I was joking with his name's Dave, and I was like, and he said, no, I didn't see your deathbed. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, rocking chair, 85 years old. Your grandkids are here. Like you're still very much alive. You're going to tell them a story and you're going to remember something. Like you're not about to die. And I remember having this conversation with him because I was like, I don't want it on my tombstone. He's like, no, I'm not even talking about, not your tombstone, not your deathbed. I'm saying you're 85. You got another 10 years ahead of you. Who knows? Maybe 5 years, whatever. What are you doing? You're in a rocking chair. Where are you sitting? What do you wish you were doing? Who are you with? And it was funny because you brought up the deathbed, because that's exactly what I said. He's like, no, different type. And I was And it's just shifted. The timing of the advice that I got was perfect. And it took a long time to actually make the changes and so on and so forth, et cetera. But like, it was really, it made a lot of difference. Yeah. Cause I really value like family, and I really value, being with my wife and kids and being able to see our sets of parents and stuff, and like travel the world and see things. And so how do you look at life from 85 versus I'm a product person in an AI world and product, customer, disruption, startup. It's like, step back. Like,
right.
Okay.
Very easy to get wrapped up in whatever we're on at the moment and not have that zoom out perspective. And I do love the rocking chair. So maybe I'll try that one on. This has been great. So I love the conversation. And can you let listeners know how they can get in touch if they want to reach out?
Oh yeah, for sure. Probably easiest is to add me on LinkedIn. And shoot me. I will say that if you do add me on LinkedIn because you listen to this podcast, like indicate that. Because I think for better or for worse, there's a lot of like agents and bots and so on. And I get added by random folks that I'm like, wait, what? So context would be amazing. If you have any feedback or anything that resonated or didn't resonate, or you want to challenge me on anything I mentioned, LinkedIn's probably the easiest.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I loved this conversation. I loved the talking and learning from you about how you think about kind of identifying those customer needs for product evolution, the kind of business environment that we're in today, and how to kind of work best as a leader, and creating the right kind of environment for our teams. So thank you so much for everything that you shared.
Yeah, no, and thank you for the opportunity, Natalie, and thank you to anyone that's listened. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to figure out what's the best right way to build teams, develop myself, et cetera. So I appreciate you inviting me on the podcast. I appreciate all the listeners tuning in, and looking forward to hearing more and learning.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Vivek. And thank you to everybody that's listening. If today's conversation sparked something new for you, and I'm sure that it did, please pass this along to another leader in your network, because these really are the types of conversations that help all of us scale smarter, build stronger, and navigate the times that we're living in. So thanks again, Vivek. And this has been another wonderful conversation on Shift and Thrive. I'll see you all next time. That's a wrap for this week's episode. For show notes and more, visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com. A special thank you to our sponsor, Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service marketing agency to help B2B companies fuel their growth. For more information on Magnitude and to get your complimentary transformation readiness assessment, visit magnitudeconsulting.com/getready. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.